everybody, welcome back to Furniture Flipping Teacher. I'm Lauren and welcome back to our Airbnb renovation series here on FFT. Today we are gonna move on past demo. Well, I guess we're sorta kinda demoing. We're getting things prepped to make into something new, a new space, a new area. And so we are going to be tackling the kitchen cabinets today. Well, at least the beginning steps of the kitchen cabinets. We are going to be stripping back the paint that is on these kitchen cabinets. It's kind of like a pinkish whitish color, and I can just tell that there are layers and layers of paint on these doors. And since they are inset doors and they don't sit on the face front, it's going to be necessary to go ahead and strip the paint back so that we're not adding more layers on top of that, so that it doesn't rub against anything when we're opening and closing these cabinets. Generally, I would just probably paint over, especially when I'm going to be using Beyond Paint in a little while once we get these actually finished. But that'll be a whole nother video. But in this case, in order to do it the best way and the most sustainable way, we're gonna have to take that extra step and go ahead and strip back all of these cabinets. So this kitchen has definitely seen better days, and we are gonna bring it back to those better days, and we're gonna just start from scratch. So what I mean by that is there are hinges, and the hinges on the cabinets have also been painted. Whenever the person who painted the cabinets was doing that job, they painted literally everything. They painted the hinges, they painted the insides of the cabinets, they painted everything over. So once we've got all of the paint stripped, I am definitely going to be replacing the hinges. I'm gonna try to find those same exact hinges, so I'll bring them to Menards or Home Depot to go ahead and get those same exact ones. But stripping those hinges is just gonna be a lot more work than I really want to when I could just buy new ones. That way I know they're gonna work well, and plus a couple of them are actually completely broken to begin with. And don't worry, I am gonna be removing all of the hardware and replacing that once the paint is all on the cabinets. But again, that is gonna be in a later video. This is just focusing on stripping back the cabinets. So I was at Home Depot for a while researching and trying to figure out which stripper I wanted to grab and see, basically test it out. You guys know that I hate stripping furniture. I would rather just have a piece of furniture that doesn't already have paint on it, but that's not the case here. These cabinets need to be stripped. So I looked at all of the reviews on Google, and this is the best stripper that I found that had the best reviews. So we are gonna try this. It is Clean Strip Premium Paint Stripper. So it says 15 minutes is how long it takes to kind of activate, but I also know that the longer you kind of let it stay on there, the better, and the more paint it's going to kind of crinkle up and loosen from the surface. Before we get to stripping though, our first order of business is that I am going to remove all of the cabinet doors as well as the hardware from all of the cabinets so that we can have a clean slate here and start stripping. All right, so you gotta shake it up really well. Just gonna start with a little bit right now. Then I've just got a cheap chip brush. I actually got a pack of 50 of them on Amazon for pretty cheap because chip brushes are now like $1.50 to $2 each, which is almost as much as a regular brush used to be. So keep an eye out on Amazon. I'll try to link that down below for you guys. But this is just a throwaway brush is what I call them. So I'm not too worried about, you know, it ruining any of my brush because it's just a cheap brush. So I've got a little container here full of the stripper, and I'm just gonna go ahead and start painting it on right here. I'm gonna get a pretty good amount on there. And if it drips onto the countertops, that's okay with me because we're gonna be kind of revamping those as well. But you wanna do a very thick layer, and then just gonna go across all the areas that I want stripped off. Again, the ventilation is key. This isn't actually horribly smelly, but definitely don't want to just be breathing this in with no ventilation. So I've got that window cracked open. Actually, I've got both windows wide open. All right, now I am just going to continue going around the entire top here and applying the paint stripper, and then we'll let that set on there for about 15 to 20 minutes before we come back and strip it off. So this is the area where I sort of started. It's not really taking just yet, but then if you look over here, you can definitely see that crumpling look. That is what you want to see. That's how you know that it's working. I can sort of see that there must have been some green paint underneath this top layer of paint. So who knows how many layers we've got here. This is all coated. Again, I'm just doing the outside portions of the kitchen cabinets because the insides are not really hindering the outside doors closing. I am doing this little lip here because this will be in the way of the doors when they open and shut. So now that we've got this crumpling here, I don't know what even to call it, but it's basically the paint stripper reacting with the paint, and you can tell that it is working and it's ready to be stripped off. So I've got my scraper, and then I've got another container here that I'm going to actually put the paint in. So let's go ahead and try it. So when I switched to the metal scraper, we're getting a little bit more off here. But as you can see, just as I suspected, there's tons of layers of paint. So I think it's like this this top layer, like the pinkish, then there's a white layer, then there's a blue layer, or the white, yeah, the white was on top of the blue. And then I can see green here. So that's at least 4 layers of paint we've got going on here. So I've got my work cut out for me. All right, you guys. The first round of stripper is done. It didn't really get too much off, and I don't know if I didn't put it on thick enough, or if it just dried out too quickly, or if the paint was just so thick, because again, I think there's like 4 or 5 layers on it. But we're definitely gonna be putting on some more layers of paint stripper. I think what I'm gonna do is continue on the tops here, and then once I get a rhythm down, I'll move over to the bottom and also the cabinet fronts. This is a very messy job, and this is exactly why I don't like to strip stuff. I have gloves on though, and then I've got my glasses here. So, but you know, paint chips are falling everywhere. I'll show you the gross paint that has been scraped off already. And yeah, lots more work to go, but hey, we're making progress. Okay, it's been about that 15-minute mark for the cabinets over here. And as you can tell, it is reacting so much better than it did on the first go around. So, you know, I'm already thinking we're probably gonna need a third coat here, but I am super excited to see this come off. It's gonna be so satisfying. See, there's that green paint. So it goes wood, green, blue, white, pink. So many layers. So definitely gonna need another coat, maybe even a second, or wait, this is the second and third. So maybe even a fourth coat, but it's working. Just taking a while. Sorry for my crazy hair. We almost need a layer of stripper per layer of paint at this point. The second day here, I actually went ahead and applied a second layer, a third layer to those cabinets in the kitchen, and I scraped it off. We're getting there, but it is just taking so much longer than I anticipated with those 4 layers of paint. So we're in here with this in the sunroom with the cabinet doors. So I've got them all laid out here in this room, and I am going to try another method since I've tried the stripper and I'm almost done with my whole entire first container, and I maybe would like to save a little bit of time, but also a little bit of money. I am going to whip out my heat gun again. I used this on the floors to get that tar paper up. If you haven't checked out that video of Demo Day 2, be sure and check it out up here, and I'll of course link that down below. But I am going to get this heat gun out and see how it does with removing of the paint. Again, there's 4 layers, so I'm unsure how well it's going to work, but I figured it's worth a shot to see if this method goes a little bit faster than stripping with the chemical stripper. So let's get to it. All right, so I'm gonna be using my Wagner Ferno 550, and this is a heat gun. It's got some settings here. I just typically have it on the highest setting with the strongest fan and the highest heat. And then I've also got the little adapter here on my heat gun, and that's a tip. There's 4 tips that come with this, and this is just helping it be pretty concentrated in one little area. So I'll link this down below if you're interested. I use this on furniture flips sometimes as well. It's kind of just a nice thing to have on hand. So we're going to try it. And then one thing that when you're using the heat gun, you want to make sure to have a metal scraper, not plastic, because obviously the heat is going to melt the plastic away. So you want to have that metal scraper. So let's go ahead and test it out. So this heat gun definitely seems to be working. Again, either way you do it, it's just gonna be a mess. So just make sure that you're very careful. I am gonna go grab my mask and continue on. So the one good thing that I'm learning already about the heat gun is that it makes a mess, yes, but it's not as goopy and nasty of a mess because these paint chips are already hardened. So basically you're just going to get a little bit of some soft paint, but they'll harden really quickly. So all of this paint is already hardened. So definitely going to be a lot easier cleanup than the paint stripper, the chemical stripper, because all I've got to do is sweep this up as opposed to using mineral spirits and all of that jazz. Oh my goodness. Sometimes I question myself and what I've gotten myself into. But we got one cabinet stripped, and then what I'll do is I'll just go over it with my sander when I am about ready to prime it, and that will get the rest of the residue off. I'm thinking that, you know, some of these layers are gonna end up just staying on there. As long as it's smoothed out, it's really not too big of a deal. But this is just what you get when you get layers and layers of paint on cabinets. So again, that was my first one. I'd say honestly, this took me about 30 minutes to do. So not a quick process whatsoever, but on to the next one. And I do think that I like this method a bit better than the actual chemical stripper. It's still just as time consuming, but the mess just doesn't quite, it's not quite as big as a mess as the chemical stripper is. So I am going to set this one aside for now, and we're gonna move on to the rest of the cabinet. So I've got 4 cabinets front and back done with the heat gun. I'm noticing that it's taking me about 30 minutes per cabinet of that size. So of that size, looks like I've got 2 more left, and then I've got 4 more drawers, and then 6 larger cabinets. So I'm thinking about 4 to 6 more hours of stripping. I'm gonna take a break from the cabinets though, and then I'm gonna go back into the kitchen, and I am going to try out the heat gun on the bottom face frames. When I'm doing a project, I just kind of like to switch it up a little bit here and there when I'm getting bored of one thing. I'm still doing the same thing, but it's a different area in the house. So I'll show you what the cabinets look like now, and then we'll head into the kitchen and continue stripping back the paint. So even with the heat gun, we're still getting some green around the outsides. This is the actual outside of the cabinet, and this is the inside of the cabinet. So pretty interesting contrast there. I'm just assuming that the insides weren't painted as many times as the outsides were. So 2 done there, 2 done there, and then we got 4 drawers to do, and then these cabinet doors left, as well as those larger cabinet doors that I'll probably save for last. Let's head into the kitchen. Okay, so we got the face frame of this one over here finished up. The heat gun is doing its thing. Like I told you, it's these paint chips that are coming off now. And instead of all that goopy yuck, we've got much larger paint chips. They're dry, they're hard, they crack. So they're much easier to sweep up into my dustpan and just throw away. So I'm gonna continue moving along over here. I wanna get all of this finished before I go back to the cabinets. And so that's what I'm gonna be doing. Also, really quick, I wanted to say again with the green, that just must be some indestructible paint. It's really odd to me that that's staying on there, but it's also kind of makes sense because it's like the oldest and it was the one that went directly onto the wood. So maybe it just soaked in there. I'm really still unsure. If you know what's going on, let me know down in the comments. But my plan is that I'm just going to sand it, and I'm not gonna even sand all the way down to the wood, but I'm just gonna sand everything that's left over, sand it smooth, and then that will give me a great base layer to then go ahead and prime. I'm on the final two cabinets here, final two, and this heat gun is going fairly smooth. This is day 3, and I've gotten 2, 4, 6 cabinets done, plus the 4 drawers. So I've got these last 2 to go, and then we will be finished stripping back the paint on all of the cabinets as well as the fronts in there. So I cannot wait for this to be completely finished up. Let's get to it. Holy cow. You guys, I just finished up, and as you can tell, it's getting dark outside. This is done. The actual stripping of the paint off of the cabinets with my heat gun is finished. We've got all of these paint chips now that are hardened again. So I cannot harp enough how much less of a mess it was with the heat gun versus the chemical stripper. I said from the beginning that I do not like the chemical stripper, and I will probably never buy it again because the heat gun works, and not only does it work, but you can save money by using it, and it's just a great tool to have on hand. I honestly didn't know that I was going to be using it so much, but in this project, the Airbnb project alone, I've already used it twice with some pretty big projects, and it's really helped me cut my time down, but also just a great tool to have on hand. Who knows, I might continue using it throughout the whole project. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was a long process, but getting through it is just another thing that I can cross off of our checklist and getting closer to getting this place finished. So we have several videos coming up soon. We are going to be sanding these cabinets down, priming them, and painting them. So stick around to see what color I am going to be painting these. We've got to refinish the hardwood floors. We have got so much ahead of us. So if you're not already, be sure to get subscribed down below and continue going along with us on our journey of renovating this little space in our home to call an Airbnb. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next week, and I'll see you on the flip side.